All right, so I'm just going to go a little bit through the viewport settings because they have changed and there are quite a few things that you can control through the viewport settings. We've seen edged faces, and really this first kind of one is really just the F3 and F4, which gives you the wireframe override or not. And you've seen this one, which just gives you whether it's a camera or whether it's a specific view. But most of the stuff that we really want to talk about comes under the shading menu. So under high quality, which is some of these files were given to you in high quality, if you come down to standard, you'll see that the reflections from the HDRI sky are not appearing in this viewport. And we've got a few ways of controlling that. Standard is nice and fast, so it's really good for when you're working with geometry and you don't want your fans whirring away in the background. Standard has a few different things that you can make better. So if you come into the per view presets or the viewport global settings, under the viewport global settings, I do like to turn on my statistics. So here I might turn on my polygon count for selection, and I might also do my display performance, the anti-aliasing. It is possible to just put this all the way up to 8. And I don't tend to have my improve quality progressively because I find that a little bit eyeball disturbing. So we can go apply and OK, and it will look much nicer for us on the screen then. Under standard, we can also get to lighting and shadows and to materials. Now there's a few sort of funky things about materials and the way these things work that mean that it's a little bit difficult to look at. So if we come under our, we do want to come to our under our standard, and these, we don't need these at the moment, but if we come under our scene light control and we illuminate with scene lights, you'll see it lightens up a bit. And under our materials, we want to have realistic materials with maps. So those two things will now get our reflections, but I'm also getting a fairly nice, speedy environment. The one other thing I can do under here, under lighting and shadows, is I can have shadows working, and I can have my, let me see, my ambient occlusion working. Now that isn't turning up yet because I need to set that whole thing in my viewport global settings. No, in my viewport per view presets. All right, so here we have, this is our per view setting, and you can see that I have got highlights ticked, I've got reflections from environment. Unticked at the moment is my progressive skylight. Because we're doing an external scene, I am going to tick that one, we will be doing the external progressive skylight. Our shadows are ticked, our ambient occlusion is ticked, and we can have under here, might go into advanced rendering, so that way we have scene lights and scene lights, and that gives us unlimited lights. All right, so that's probably all we need to know about that. One other thing that we are wanting to kind of work with, I guess, in a scene is that we still want to be able to see kind of shadows and stuff in our scene. So if I Alt W and put this back to top view, and if I bring in an Arnold light, photometric, Arnold light, bring in a distant light. So our sun in Arnold is represented by a distant light. We can have it coming in wherever we like. If I come down to this one and go to our standard, I just want standard, not wireframe, have it back to F3. We should be able to start getting some shadows working. So we will need to find our Arnold light, move it into position for ourselves. Just to activate our move tool, get that into position. Bring it up to here and bring it around. Over here. Now, of course, what you can see is that we're not getting shadows on this box, which is what we were after. So we may need to go to our per view presets again and just check what's going on. So we do, in this viewport, want progressive skylight, shadows, and ambient occlusion. And we also want our advanced so that we get unlimited scene lights. Okay, so now that's giving us what we want. You can save these. So it's possible to save them as your own set of per viewport settings. It doesn't allow you to save that in any specific place. So if you're working on a machine at school, you'll find that that is not particularly useful to you. So you really just need to remember those few settings so that when you pull your light in and out, you're getting what you want. Now that we've got shadows in our scene, which is fabulous, we can have a go at our active shade render. So we'll just push this one. And as you can see, we're a little overexposed, which is okay. Oh, and our light is, our water is very, very blue, so we have some adjustments that we need to make. The first adjustment that I will make is bringing the exposure level down. So in our rendering environment, into our environment, we will check our exposure control. And what we want is physical camera exposure control. You can see that's really, really overblown. And we can either tick this, use physical camera controls if available, which would mean that we can control each camera exposure control separately, or if you want to work in a more simple way, we can untick this and reduce our exposure value. Now, when I say reduce our exposure value, I'm saying we bring this down to an exposure of 14, or maybe higher than that, maybe 9. Let's see how we go. And you'll have to just play around with that. And we are illuminating using daylight. So daylight's pretty, that is probably what we want. Let's have a look at how we render. I think that is still quite overexposed, so I'll probably bring that environment down a little more, down to, or up to maybe 9.5. So once you have lights in there, things start to change. One last thing I think we want to do here is, if you're not enjoying having the background, the HDRI sky background in your scene, you can get rid of that but still keep the reflections on the water. So if you come into your material editor, I've got my HDRI sky here. There are ways we can adjust it, so you can actually just change the rotation, and that will change that HDRI in the background for you. So you might find a better spot that you like. You can change the tilt, just I guess be careful. And you can see that that's giving you a better result already. You can also you can have a ground projection. So you can have the ground projection and you can have it sort of a tripod height. That is sort of like clamping it to a ground. Sometimes that gets a bit funky, as you can see through the front here. But the other thing that you can do is just have a custom background so that you can still have your lighting and reflections, but you don't have to have all of that detail. So you might just have the white happening through here, and that'll just give you a sort of a grey sky. So if you were to render that now as a PNG, then you will be able to put your own sky in the background, just in Photoshop if you like, or whatever you'd like to do there. So that's kind of that. Thanks.